Warm your hands by the Rowdy campfire, men. It's cold outside, but we're still talking hot racing topics here on the Rowdy Roundtable.
You know, the good thing about burning tires is that the heat just lasts forever.
I know,
it does.
it's really
good for your hot dog.
I love the smell, though. That's what I love best
Catch
of all.
a little buzz.
Sitting alongside Buck Fever and Buzz Cutler, my name is Bassmasters. We're talking NASCAR racing, looking back at the 2010 season, and today, let's get bummed out, shall we, and talk about the biggest disappointments of the year.
Wait, let me try to go there. Okay.
It's really easy to get there. Very simple.
Well, I tell you one way to get there, if I may start.
Yes, please
would be to
do.
look at the 42 car of Juan Pablo Montoya, because I don't know if it's just me.
Yeah, it's just you.
Okay, because I was looking at this guy coming into the year, and in fact, midway through the year, I did a V-blog on how fast the guy was, because he was showing a ton of speed out there. Looked like he was going to build on his remarkable performance in the 2009 chase, where he made the chase by kind of being very conservative and then showed a ton of speed in the chase. Thought he would build on that. Instead, with very fast race cars, gentlemen, the guy just had so many bad finishes. It was just hard to take.
It feels like he learned a really valuable lesson in 2009.
Which he did not apply in
Which he totally forgot in 2010, which is first do no harm.
Well, I mean,
First, get to the chase.
Get to the chase. He had the cars that, like you said, that were fast enough. He won a race. He had fast cars. Seems like he could have made some noise in the chase, but he wasn't, I don't know if conservative is the right word, he wasn't conservative enough to get to the chase in the first place.
I'm reminded of what Dick Trickle told Mark Martin, you know, if you want to win the race, first you got to finish it. And he just didn't seem to be finishing these races.
And you know, sometimes these things just happen to you. But when so many of them happen to you, you wonder, is the driver putting himself in a situation that has too much potential for harm? And I think maybe you could levy that criticism on Juan Pablo a little bit and say, you know what, this one position right now, I mean, look at Denny Hamlin in Miami. That one position right then was not worth the risk.
I think what happened with Juan Pablo is he had such a rough start to the season.
Then you try to make it all up.
Exactly, he tried to make it all up. He was feeling all this pressure. Whereas if he had just sort of taken a breath, he might have been able to make up the hole that he started in. And it also must have sucked for him to see Jamie McMurray's success.
Well, the other thing is Jamie didn't make the chase either.
Right.
You know, despite all that success.
He blew off Buzz Cutler and Buck Fever when we went out to talk to him when he was flying model airplanes. If he'd have talked to us, we'd have helped him.
Juan Pablo?
Juan Pablo.
Yeah.
Big mistake there,
Big
JP.
mistake.
Well, you'll probably get a chance to rectify
All
it.
right, so JP is your biggest
It has to be.
disappointment.
And maybe that's just because I think his spotter, Tab Boyd, is just such a great guy.
Great guy.
He's a friend of Rowdy, you know.
And a good landlord.
Right. So what's your biggest disappointment of 2009?
It has to be Dale Jr. The guy starts on the front row of the Daytona 500. We think he's going to turn it around, and then, man, he maybe leads 6 laps all season. He just did not look good, and for the entire NASCAR world, even Brian France, you know, said, he said several times, "We really want Jr. to do well. We really do. You know, gosh, we do." You don't often
so much hope riding on Junior that makes his performances disappointing. But the other thing that strikes me, Buck, is there was a point there at the beginning of the year where he had kind of clawed his way into the top 12. We're getting to some short tracks. And I think I said at the time, another one of my wrong predictions, Dale Jr. is going to make the chase.
My biggest disappointment is your predictions.
He's going to get into the top 12 and never look back. He did get into the top 12. Unfortunately, he looked back. He looked a long way back and found himself back there at the end of the year.
To me, Junior's struggles and the disappointment of his performance is a microcosm for the greater disappointment of Hendrick Motorsports and their satellite teams. I mean, yes, they won a championship, so it's ironic to talk about them as having a disappointing season.
Yes.
But Mark Martin didn't win, nor did he make the chase. Jeff Gordon didn't win. Of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr. didn't win. Plus, Stewart Haas Racing was off from where they had performed the previous season. So I think, yes, Junior was a disappointment, but wasn't Hendrick in general a little bit of a disappointment?
I think it's hard to keep up the pace that they had from 2009. I mean, I think that was going to be pretty tough to dominate the way they did, finishing 1, 2, 3 in the points and to have that much of an advantage over everybody else. So they did come back to earth a little bit. I'm not sure I'd call it a disappointment when you're looking at another championship trophy, your 5th in 5 years, and 10th overall for Rick Hendrick. I just don't know if you can call the organization a disappointment when one of their drivers comes out on top.
That's half a decade of dominance. I don't want to call them a disappointment, although they have made some pretty big changes.
All right, we have one more disappointment.
Yeah, and I could go, I'm torn here because you could either say Jeff Burton's chase performance or Brad Keselowski's season performance was a disappointment. I'm going to go with Keselowski because Burton did make the chase.
It's interesting with Keselowski.
Well, because Keselowski, I mean, it was forever until he even scored a top 10 after winning a race the previous season.
Not only that, but how he performed the
and
next
how he performed in the Nationwide Series, I had, and I think we had expectations that, well, maybe he wasn't going to make the chase, but maybe he'd score some top tens, maybe he'd be more consistent, challenge for a couple of wins. We didn't see any of that.
Well, he was too busy getting in Carl Edwards' hair. I mean, they were too busy getting in pissing matches before, so he couldn't even score a point.
It just, to me, if you look at Penske Racing, you saw Kurt Busch start out pretty well at the beginning of the year. Had some good races. Keselowski was just, I expected him to run at parity with Kurt. Now, at the end of the year, when Kurt kind of slipped a little bit, I think maybe the organization was a little behind there, and it was hard to expect Brad to do so well, although that's when he was able to card his 2 top 10 finishes that he enjoyed here in 2010. So I think Brad Keselowski is the guy you want to watch next year. You know, Penske's made some changes to the nose of their car, the Dodge nose.
Well, in Keselowski, it's Paul Wolfe.
He gets Paul Wolfe, his championship-winning crew chief from the Nationwide Series, and he's a year wiser. He's got a new sponsor in Miller Lite. So I think Keselowski would be an interesting guy to watch in 2011. I would have to characterize 2010 as a bit of a disappointment for him. Expected a little more from him, I think, this year. All right, that has been your Rowdy Round Tire discussion. Keeping ourselves warm here in the dead of winter. My name is Bassmasters. For Buck Fever and Buzz Cutler, we will see you next time.
Should we tell ghost stories or sing campfire songs? Kumbaya, my lord. Kumbaya.
Cha-cha-cha.
Kumbaya, my Buck.
Cha.
So are we saying Buck is our lord?
We're not including that. That's just horrible. We were off tune. It was just terrible.
Yeah, we'll cut that out.
Cut that. Just cut it right out. Oh, my back.
Rowdy.com. Say it like it is.
Say what like it is?
Rowdy.com.